Hey everyone, welcome to our second episode of Pointers with the Pros, where we sit down with dustless blasting contractors and talk about various blasting topics. I'm Jeff Jenkins.
And I'm Kaylin Starr, and on this second episode, we are sitting down with Patrick Grimes from Pro Blast of South Florida yet again. He was on for episode 1, but he had so much good advice for you guys that we just had to bring him back. So if you missed episode 1, make sure to check that out on our YouTube channel.
That's right. We saw several of you had questions for Patrick Grimes about pricing jobs, getting new customers, and what kind of products he uses on a daily basis for his business. So let's go ahead and see what he has to say about a few of these topics, starting with tips on pricing jobs.
Well, in the beginning, obviously, I was excited for the phone to ring and to go out and bid a job. So not knowing what I was doing, certainly we probably underbidded some jobs. And after you underbid a few jobs, you learn not to do that again. And when the potential client tells you that they have other bids and are you willing to negotiate? Again, in the beginning, you're always willing to negotiate and try it out. But after you lose money on a few jobs, there's no more negotiations.
Right. So Patrick said in the first episode that pricing jobs is actually the most challenging part for him personally, but the one piece of advice that he really wanted you guys to know is to stick to your price once you give that price to a customer or potential client. And so he said that originally, he was just so eager to get business that when he gave people a price, if they wanted to negotiate, he was willing to negotiate. And that ended up hurting him a few times on projects. So now he knows, absolutely not. Once I give my price, I'm not willing to negotiate. And so some of you probably are thinking, well, what if my client, really doesn't want to take me up on this? Well, what we recommend doing is kind of putting things into perspective, right? So if you are charging $10 a square foot to restore something and it's gonna cost actually $25 to replace this item, you're saving that client money in the long run to restore it than for them to just go ahead and replace it.
Yeah, there's many factors that go into pricing a job. You gotta consider the condition of the coating. Is it 3 layers of paint? Is it a super thick coating of powder coating, or is it some other crazy coating you haven't encountered before? You have to decide what kind of abrasive you're going to use on the job, and you're going to have to factor in that expense into your overall job.
Right, for example, like garnet might be faster for you, but garnet is also more expensive than crushed glass. So those are things that you're going to have to consider when you're pricing. And that is why we recommend doing a test blast. So when you go out and you do a test blast, you're really going to be able to figure out what your production rate is. And you'll be able to see, okay, I should use this media for this job, or this job actually has some weird angles or unique spaces that's gonna take me longer. And also when you do your test blast, you're able to get to know the client a little bit better, and that's a huge part when pricing a job, because you're gonna wanna make sure that your client's needs are understood and that they're met.
That's right. It's important to take into consideration the customer's expectations. Say the customer just wants you to do a brush blast, or maybe he's wanting you to take it down to bare metal. Will you be responsible for cleanup? Setting up containment and barriers is definitely a lengthy process, and you'll want to add that into your estimate as well.
Absolutely. And so, we know that every job is different, right? Like, we can't sit here and tell you, here's the price that you need to charge, because every project is different. And so what we have done, because we know this can be a little bit overwhelming, is we have created a guide in our academy that gives you real life examples of jobs we've seen, how much they've charged, how long it took them, what the square footage was. And so because every job is different, sometimes you're going to need to charge by the square foot. Sometimes you're going to give an hourly rate. For big commercial projects, you might give a day rate. So you'll want to make sure to check out our academy for these resources to really help you step by step figure out how to price each job.
And if you're a part of the Dustless Blasting community, you'll have access to our Dustless Blasting Facebook group, where all of our contractors get on. They talk about what kind of jobs they're doing right then, how they're pricing those jobs, and what kind of coatings they're encountering. So it's a really good asset for you to use. But again, if you are a current Dustless Blasting owner and you do not have access, get in contact with us directly and we'll get you in there.
Now, a lot of you wanted to know how Patrick stays so busy and what he owes a lot of his success to. And so in the beginning, he tried anything and everything to get new customers, and now he really knows what works best for him. So I'll let him tell you what's working for his business and how he actually gets repeat business.
Well, my wife. She's a soldier. What works for, I've tried everything from newspaper, magazine article ads, direct brochures, direct mailers, meeting people. I haven't knocked on doors because I personally don't like solicitors, so I can imagine what would happen if I knocked on someone's doors. But what we found out over the 2.5, 3 years we've been in business now is Google is king. Nothing tops Google. And when we ultimately wrapped my truck, that helped significantly. As a matter of fact, I went and did an estimate today. I just thought I was going to go look at another commercial job, and I get there, and now I'm looking at 500,000 square feet of concrete that needs to be cleaned, as well as some other stuff. This could be a six-figure job. And anyways, but the maintenance guy who I was meeting in the parking lot pointed at my truck and just said, "I want you to know truck wraps work, because that's how I found you." We do have repeat business, mainly from our contractors, our pool contractors, some of the general contractors, and we have one used truck dealership that you probably see on the social media site. He's definitely a repeat business. We probably do $50,000 a year with him alone.
We love hearing about all the jobs that Patrick has landed just by simply wrapping his truck and driving down the road. It's really awesome to hear stories like that.
Yeah, we love to hear the stuff that's working for our contractors. And so I know that Patrick touched a little bit on the marketing that him and his wife have been doing with running Google ads and things like that. And so if that's something that might be intimidating to you, we do have options available for you. So we do have marketing packages, and we're happy to help you build a website and give you graphics that help promote your business. So make sure to ask about that once you order your machine. And if you're someone who has already purchased your machine and you don't have that marketing bundle, but now you would like it, make sure to call your sales rep and he will get you all set up with that.
Now, Patrick has been in the business for a couple years now, and he's learned quite a few things. Let's go ahead and hear what he has to say about different various topics such as cleanup, wet blasting, dry blasting, and just some of the different things he's seen in the industry so far.
So typically when you take on a project, are you dry blasting, wet blasting? How do you kind of decide that? Do you let the customer choose? What does that decision making look like?
We bought this equipment because of the dustless blasting, but we find that dry blasting in some cases is a lot easier and faster. But there's also some cases where we want to dry blast, but actually doing it dry will damage the surface. So we immediately go to wet. So for dry blasting, wet blasting, it's a 50-50.
So a ton of questions that we get are usually about cleanup. Can you go ahead and just walk me through some things that you generally do for cleanup, or what that process looks like, if you set up any containments or anything like that?
Cleaning tips from after blasting: if you can set up a containment, whether it be 4x8 sheets of plywood or contractor netting, it helps greatly to contain everything to one spot. That way you can just clean up that one area. But in this business, you have to keep a lot of things on your rigs, from push brooms, the power brooms, the shovels, to wheelbarrows, trash bags. I mean, I sometimes I feel I need an 18-wheeler to carry everything that we do.
Have you ever been in a situation where a client has contacted you, but before they did, they tried other methods, and when you got out to that job, you kind of had to rescue the whole situation and clean up everything they had already tried?
All the time. I get calls. They call our office, and we show up. They went to Home Depot. They rented pressure washers. They've rented sanders. They've rented grinders. They've brought in chemicals. Oh my God, that's a mess. And then we come in and I kind of giggle in my head, but we save them. I'll get a client that says, I've been pressure washing my pool deck for 2 weeks. Okay, sir, I can have this done for you in 4 hours.
Another thing that keeps Patrick's business so successful is the regular maintenance that he does on his machinery. It's important to do maintenance, just like on any other large machine or even your car. Regular maintenance makes everything run smoothly.
Absolutely. And so we know that not everyone knows how to upkeep or maintain their machine, right? Especially if they've never done this line of work before. And so because of that, we went ahead and put all of our maintenance videos online in our academy, which you can go to if you visit dustlessblasting.com. Or we actually have a playlist on our YouTube channel as well for all things maintenance on your compressor or replacing parts in your blast pot. So make sure to check that out. And so Patrick actually did touch on a few of his favorite products that you can find in our online store that he keeps with him at all times, whether it's for maintenance, upkeep, or just things that he thinks is super important to take out on the job in case he needs it. So I'll let him touch on a few of those products.
We keep a lot of spare parts, but the main things that we do keep on are the pinch hoses, elbows. We do have an extra tailpipe, extra blast hoses, because I know most people carry maybe 100 feet, but sometimes we'll get to a job and we'll need 200 feet. But the main parts we always keep in stock are the pinch hoses, the elbows, air filters and fuel filters and oil filters, because we try to maintain our equipment and change the oil and fuel filters every 200 to 300 hours. And for me, for 200 to 300 hours, that's like every couple months. There's proper equipment out there for these very hot Florida days. With the Nova 3, it works very well. I recommend everyone buy it and definitely use it. Just wear the proper attire, especially in Florida. I mean, if you're out here with cotton shirts, you're going to suffer. Just wear the proper gear and your proper PPE, and these hot, sunny Florida days will feel like a cool day under those helmets.
All the products that Patrick has mentioned can be found in our online store. And remember to stay on top of your maintenance, because it's much easier to replace a $50 part versus never doing maintenance and sacrificing something more internal and more expensive.
Patrick did have one last thing to share with you guys. He wanted you to know that this job is super rewarding, right? He has built this awesome business just from buying one machine, and now has moved on to several machines, and is hiring a crew. And so it's been a really rewarding process for him. But he also wanted to remind you guys that it's hard work. You're gonna make money, but you're also gonna get dirty. So let's hear what Patrick has to say about that.
This business is certainly hard, but it can and will be very rewarding if you push through it. I think some people buy into this and think they're going to make $1 million in 6 months. It's not going to work that way. I believe, somebody like myself, and I watch other people, we are on our way to doing $1 million a year. But it's hard work. And if you're persistent and you just keep at it, you're going to get that phone to ring.
Well, that's all we have for this episode of Pointers with the Pros. We're so glad you can join us, and make sure to tune in on August 29th for our 3rd episode, and a special shout out to Patrick Grimes for agreeing to be featured.
In the meantime, visit dustlessblasting.com to view all the products you've seen in today's episode. And if there's any topics or questions you guys have, leave them in the comments section down below.
We'll see you next time.